Hey guys, how you going? VaulSC here. We're going to kick off our coverage of the ITS event featuring Soldiers of Fortune with Game 1, which was Aleph, me playing Aleph with the mercenaries up against OSS. So it's vanilla faction versus sectorial of that same faction. My opponent choosing not to run any mercenaries, and that seemed to be a disappointing theme over this weekend. There were only 10 players, and me and my buddy coming down from out of town were, as far as I could tell, the only two people actually bothered to use Soldiers of Fortune in their list, which was a bit naff. And, we really made them work, but the other players didn't seem to even bother taking them, which calls into question why you even include Soldiers of Fortune in the tournament in the first place. But nobody could have known really what the masses were going to decide to do. I'm going to go pretty quickly through this bat rep. It turns out to be quite a one-sided game, sadly. You do get that quite a lot in ITS events because initially the first round draw is random, so you may get somebody who's pretty experienced with infiNity, playing for many years, against somebody who's newer to it and doesn't practice as much, and obviously there's going to be a disparity in understanding the game there. But for the sake of completion, we'll run through it and we'll see what we can pick up from it. So my opponent running the Asura level 2 hacker with Red Rum upgrade, Assault Hacker. I don't love this profile because it is very vulnerable to the Maestro ability. One successful hit with Maestro is going to drop you to NWI. Then a Red Rum after that's going to kill you. And with all of the stuff in the game that can put repeaters next to you and just use a hacker in their turn to, at their leisure, blast you, it's going to be really bad considering that the Asura does not have a killer hack device, so she'll still suffer the firewall penalties in that kind of scenario. She's a good specialist to go out there, but again, makes herself vulnerable to exactly that. Also, multi-rifle, starting in your deployment zone, it can take a while to get into range with it, and as you're crossing the battlefield, you may come into snipers and missile launchers you didn't really want to. The level 2 Lieutenant ability is cool though because it stacks with the NCO ability from the Yadus. So this Yadu fire team we see here with the HMG, boarding shotgun, multi-rifle, can actually get the +2 orders from her so they can go on a bit of a run. But again, he's got the Assault Hacker in there, which again becomes a bit of a liability against those killer hackers, so it's not wonderful. Single Bounty Hunter there. I like the Bounty Hunters, but I'd prefer the 12-point SMG profile. Cheaper, saves you 4 points for another net rod if you want it. But yeah, there are other things that you include in OSS which are better than the Bounty Hunter. Sophatech Yudbot, great. Dart is a very good model, but in the absence of posthumans, I think this list really could do with something like a TO sniper post-human plus the the Mark 5 SMGs that I use that setup as well, so that might be better than Dart, given that you're only using 3.5 SWCs here and the list could use more guns, especially the long range ones. CSU, I can't remember if you took the breaker rifle, combi rifle one, but it's definitely better to go with just the basic rifle for 12 points because you save 3 points there. And 2 net rods, although net rods are very good in a limited insertion style list, it's better to really fill the group out with things that aren't going to scatter off the table and lose you an order, because starting the game with less than a full group is really, really bad. So there are some weaknesses with this list, there are some holes, but it doesn't mean you can't win with it, and there's still a lot to learn. The scenario starting out was going to be Tic Tac Toe, and this is a mission where you get more points for having more consoles collected than your opponent. You get more points for having being the only player with them all bunched up in a row. You get more points for having one on your opponent's side. So having a look at it, Aleph is over this side here and OSS is over here. Let's move this out of the way. Let's make this a bit smaller. So the idea is that with these 9 objectives here, you can make 3 like that, or like 3 like this. It's just like noughts and crosses really. And it's, again, very good to go second, as it is with most missions, because let's say I get these 3 in a row like that. What my opponent could do is, with his turn, just send somebody over here and grab that objective, and suddenly I don't have a line anymore, and he's got 1 in my deployment zone, so that's a whole bunch of points swung. And if he happened to grab these 2 as well, that's a win for him, even though I've got 4 objectives to his 3. So going second generally is an advantage, but again, if you've done so much damage to your opponent that they can't even move out and actually grab objectives at the end, then you've done well. Also, there's no exclusion zone. You can move out there with sensors and try and spot people who are going to make a last gasp of the objectives. Okay, so I am indeed going second. So having a look, my left-hand side here, we've got the Probot Evo Repeater. Then we've also got the Diva Lieutenant just hiding away here in total cover. And Net Rods over there. The Mark V Post-Human in there. We've got the Flash Pulse Bot here. So that's pretty much all on my left-hand flank. Then if we go through to the, close up on the Diva hidden away there. Through to the middle, you can see that I've got my Krakot in there, total cover, the Mark V Post-Human there, and really just ready to survive the enemy turn and move out and do some stuff. On the right-hand flank, you can see Scarface, you can see my baggage bot, Cordelia, the HMG here, and there's the Myrmidon represented by Ashcroft just hanging out prone on this lip of the staircase here, and behind this building we're going to see some a Naga and so forth. So this is the Naga out here, and another Flash Pulse spot on the right-hand flank. Net Rods scattering out towards his side of the table, so he'll have an easy opportunity to shoot the Net Rods in his first turn. Also, there's another shot of Scarface just hanging out. Scarface is good there because he's got a good view of the enemy deployment zone. He's okay to take us some hits and then just guts back into cover and try and slow down the enemy advance as he does so. Yudbot team in my opponent's right-hand deployment zone with a, not Yudbot team, Yaru Trooper team with a Yudbot next to them to revive them if needed. Note that they go unconscious though, they go NWI though, so they're not 2-wound models, so using the Yudbot might be hard. He has put an HVT on the upper level of this building, but I explained to him that he can't do that, so he had to put it back down to ground level. Also got a couple of his own Net Rods out in the field here, which have not scattered, so they're looking good with the CSU nearby to them. And for some reason he's put this bounty hunter on top of this building, planning on seeing the whole table with it, even though he's only got a combi rifle. But when he rolls up his booty, he managed to get a Panzerfaust, so maybe he knew that he was going to get a Panzerfaust, who knows, that's quite fun. So yeah, he will be a long-range ARO at some point. Dart is hanging out just in front of his left-hand objective here and to the north of where my Net Rod has landed, and he also has a Sophitect. This black marker here is a Sophitect, an unpainted Sophitect. So there he's repositioned his HVT next to one of his Net Rods. My reserve trooper is a very obnoxious Naga with multi-sniper on this tower. Yes, so whenever, somebody comes along and sets up a tournament table and you happen to have an infiltrating sniper, you'll sometimes have the opportunity to just put it on a tower that can see the entire table. So yeah, again, I recommend when you're laying out a table, try to keep the bigger pieces towards the center and block line of sight from things on the flanks. That means that if you put the snipers in the middle, they'll be accessible by short-range guns, like from 16 to 24 inches kind of thing. Whereas in this spot, the Naga outranges everybody, and only the HMG can really take it on. So yeah, that happened. His reserve trooper is, of course, his Asura. Okay, so initially I think there is a bit of interaction between the Bounty Hunter and Scarface here, because he has a Panzerfaust, so he decides to just risk it and shoot single burst Panzerfaust against my Panzerfaust single burst. He's BS12, I'm BS13, so it's kind of bad, but if he does get it off, he's gonna, potentially do more damage to me than I will to him, in the sense that he'll only lose one guy with 16 points, whereas I could potentially lose the tag or have it severely damaged, but the thing is Cordelia can repair it. Note that he activates in line of sight of my Naga Sniper, which, can be a decent idea to try and bait it out and shoot. So the thinking there is that, sacrifice the Bounty Hunter, meaning his Naga Sniper shoots him, and then he can move around with the Yaru HMG without having to discover me. But hey, you've got an Asura that can discover the Naga anyway, but then you don't want the Asura shot by the Naga. So all things considered, it's actually not a bad play, although he probably did not do it for that reason. Anyway, the Bounty Hunter does get unlucky and is rendered unconscious by a Panzerfaust blast straight to the chest, and he goes down against Scarface. We then have the Yaru troopers moving out. It's the assault hacker going for the objective, and this is quite brave because there is a Naga sniper right here which can shoot him. Unfortunately, the Naga actually whiffs the shot completely, and we are able to go in there with the hacker and grab it. So what he's doing now is moving the Asura over now that the Naga has revealed, and the Asura is actually not on the building. He's just showing me by placing the model on the top of the building where it is on ground level. So it's actually beneath the roof here at the moment. So he's moving around, and the Asura picking up the spot here to go after the Naga. And look, I mean, the Asura is at long range and against cover, but ignores camo. So 14s -6, 8s on 3 dice. Whereas I'm hitting back on like a 12 on 1 dice. So it's a bit risky, but the Asura has, potentially 3 wounds and has cover and has, a lot of armor. So this is probably your best bet. If he goes after me with a Yaru HMG, he might even be out of range for it, which would be pretty bad. And the Yaru could go down to 1, DA hit, whereas the Asura is not going to. So this works out from the shock rounds go off and rip through the Dogged, and the Naga's removed. This allows the Asura to move out and pick up one of the objectives closer to his line and maybe shoot at the Ned Rod as it does so, and then retreat back inside the safety of this building here. Yaru Troopers now moving out and just finding spots to hang out and going prone on top of the rooftops. CSU moving out and going for this objective here. This is actually an objective, guys, so goes and presses the button and then hangs out behind this dumpster, noting that that my deployment's that away, and he's using this dumpster as cover to use with suppression fire, of course, to take that on, and Dart's still hanging there. So he's managed to, I think, pick up this objective and this objective. Actually, no, he failed the whip check on this middle one, but did get the one further over that side with the Yaru Trooper. So he's got 2 objectives to my 0, but I haven't had my turn yet. So seeing that this Asura is hiding and that, nobody's really, watching the table, and I've counted it up as limited insertion list, and I see that there's no, posthumans or anything in hidden deployment, Scarface is just going to move out and just, go balls to the wall through the table, just because when you identify that there's no ARO traps, nothing can surprise you at this point, and you know where the location of all of your enemy's models are, and you can see that there's a clear path to just engaging troops on your terms. You may as well be aggressive. So Scarface moving around here and having a go at the CSU, which has to return fire from long range initially, and that doesn't work out, so the Mark 12's ripping it up and destroying it, allowing for a clearer path through here. Now, note that Dart's position's there, and there's a Yaru Trooper further over there. So once we get Scarface to this position, it's going to be a bit of a two-way, this direction and this direction firefight. So let's see how that goes. So in he comes, noting that what he's going to be doing is moving up here to the edge of this, crossing over the dumpster as he does so, and then coming back. This will bring him in line of sight of Dart, who will respond, and there's a Yaru Trooper over the other side. So as I do that, Dart does respond and goes for a long-range EM grenade shot, which is actually probably the right thing to do, because if you're behind in the game, you need to take some risks. Landing an EM grenade with a little bit of luck can swing things drastically, because it's going to totally neutralize our friend Scarface, whereas the Yaru here probably just needs to shoot or DA round or dodge or whatever it needs to do. In fact, it's got a boarding shotgun. So Scarface here is putting most of his bursts, 3 out of the 4 shots into Dart, and eventually destroying her. Note that after the first face-to-face roll, he's moved back behind this building and can focus purely on Dart with all 4 bursts, and that is enough to destroy Dart. I mean, this is a good range for Scarface. +3, -3 for mimetism or camo. So straight 14s on 3 dice, straight 13s on 4 dice. Whereas Dart, having to lob that long-range EM grenade, doesn't have very good odds, and eventually the Mark 12s take her down. So then, of course, Scarface able to continue the rampage with all of his orders, blowing up the Yaru eventually with his Mark 12s, and of course, these net rod's going to bite the dust as well. So this is quite a significant, part of his army. He's now lost the Bounty Hunter, he's lost a CSU, Dart, 2 net rods, and 1 Yaru. So that leaves only 4 models left. And of course, setting up suppression fire in his back line, meaning that if he engages me, then he's going to have to, wear me down through that suppressive mode. With Group 2's orders, moving up with the Myrmidon to a better position, moving up with the Posthuman to try and take some consoles. In fact, takes 2 of them. And note that I'm getting a +3 bonus to pressing the buttons, whereas he does not have a Evo repeater in his list. So pressing the buttons is a lot more difficult. That's why you take an Evo repeater. You're basically collecting these on 18s, because the whip of the Posthuman's 15. And then just camping out on this doorway here. Note that this actually was a positioning mistake, because the Asura will have line of sight to it. In fact, that's exactly what happens. Asura that moves out in the responding turn, fires the multi-rifle towards the position of the Posthuman there. Luckily, I managed to tank an armor save and go prone behind the staircase, though, as you'll see from this picture. Asura in the distance there, and me going prone here. So the Asura actually now moving towards my side of the table, and again, this is really risky. He doesn't even bother to dodge, he just moves and then moves right through my line of sight. I've got one more Panzerfaust to go, so the Panzerfaust flies over there, connects with the Asura, does 2 wounds to it. So game not going great. And then the Yadus with multi-rifle ripping into Scarface. This is actually good range here for the Yadu with his multi-rifle. And of course the Yadu's got cover, Scarface doesn't. Run out of Panzerfaust. So even with suppression fire, in fact suppression fire has been dropped because it fired the Panzerfaust, a good old multi-rifle is enough to shred Scarface. And Scarface, again, just armor 5, BS-13, not the best tag in the world. Not even, you know, good on heavy infantry standards in a lot of ways, and is incapacitated at this point. Asura, continuing to move around with a benefit of Lieutenant level 2, firing at our friendly Myrmidon here. MSV3, of course, good enough to negate the so the ODD I'm trying to talk about. So the Myrmidon is wiped out, of course, by the multi-rifle here. And Asura just hanging out. Then, of course, comes back around to my turn. I can move my post-human around and just collect the third console in a row to get a straight line right down the side of the table. My HMG Dakini now moving out to get position to shoot at his Asura, which he's able to do. Asura is going to be long range. Dakini is going to be at good range with 4 dice. This is going to be enough to put down the Asura and basically finish things off with the post-human moving around and just collecting things here and there to really make sure that I've got the game stitched up. So we end up with a situation here where sorry, that was not the post-human, that was the Naga moving through to here and then over to here. So the post-human had moved around in this line, and now we have basically 5 objectives in 2 lines, in fact, and we've got one of them on the opponent's side of the battlefield. I believe I did pick up a classified because, in fact, in this next photo we'll show you the Naga bypassing these guys here. In fact, in his turn he's trying to shoot up my bots a little bit more with his Yadus. Yeah, just finishing me off basically. So I'm moving my Naga into range of his HVT, which is on the other side of this building, to collect the full 10 objective points. So that's game 1. I think 10 objective points to 0 or 10 to 1 or whatever it may be. So again, a very one-sided game, guys. Just showing it to you for the sake of completion. You can sort of see how devastating this list can be when it comes to mission completion if there's not that much resistance put up. But yeah, just thoughts for my opponent. I reckon that given that he was stuck with first turn, he could have moved his Yadu HMG around the side of the table, and I'll show you what I mean. So if I go right back to the start, in fact, let's close this and just open this up. What he could have done to have got a better outcome for this game going first is that he had his Yadu teams deployed here. Let me just close the cam out a little bit. So his Yadu team is there, right, and Scarface is there at the start of the game. You move your HMG here and around here, and you've got cover for walls, and you eventually get this angle on Scarface. And he may not really be able to get around far enough, and then you blow him up with the HMG quite easily. And you can continue moving around until you get to a point where you can shoot the spot at the back here. And like with 12 orders to start with, because of NCO, you might even get around here and just kill my lieutenant. So if my opponent had been a bit more bold with that plan, that probably would have worked in his favor. Note that for the entire game, I actually had a Mark II assault hacker here to try and interact with his Asura as it came by, but Asura has red rum, so it's not really worth springing that trap. And although I had an Evo repeater over here, the Yadus aren't really hackable, so my lieutenant would have been in a lot of trouble. So yeah, my opponent actually could have done a fair bit with his first turn and the other turns, but again, it's a bit tricky. Note that one thing making this run a bit harder, of course, is the presence of the Naga multi-sniper way up on top of this building. So there was that, but again, if he had had it revealed and then the Asura shoots it, he might be able to continue his run and still mess me up pretty badly. So yeah, the list can do it. I think this list could be better, but it's more about knowing what to do and making some courageous plays. Alright guys, that has been game 1. We'll be back tomorrow with game 2 of the Soldiers of Fortune tournament. See you then.